If you don't know where you're going to go, how are you going to get there? And the thing I always recommend to other people who are looking to start anything new is to find a community of people who are doing what you're doing or doing what you want to be doing so that you can follow in their footsteps.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Podcast. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, this is Augustino. The one thing we often cover on this show is building the right mindset. Now, when you first begin with upgrading your mind, you want to build it with the right materials, the right content, and the right people. And then from there, you'll be well on your way to creating passive income and growing your net worth. All the things that are really needed to live life on your own terms. Well, today's guest understands this. He has been obsessed with understanding how we can think better, how we can be better, and how we can do better, especially how it applies to business. Now, he is an active real estate investor who curates commercial real estate investments for his own company as a managing partner at VonFinch Capital, a real estate private equity firm. Now, he has raised tens of millions of dollars and has successfully cycled through multiple assets. Beginning as a single family operator, he's flipped over 200 houses in under 3 years before expanding to commercial syndication. Now, additionally, he's also the host of the Investor Mindset, where he explores the trials and challenges that leads to success and the mindset it takes to make it. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome Stephen Pesavento to the show. Stephen, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here with you, Augustino.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome, man. It's going to be awesome. Now, guys, if you like what Stephen has to say, you can reach him via his contact page at theinvestormindset.com. Okay, Stephen, go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit more about how you got your start in real estate.
Yeah, so I started my career in real estate, similar to many other people. If I think back, I can remember exactly when I first started thinking about it when I was a kid. So I got my career started in real estate after moving from management consulting. And when I first started, I was at this point where, I had this huge moment of clarity, and I finally decided with 100% that I was going to move in this direction. But the thing was, I didn't have any clue about what to do. And frankly, at the time, I didn't have any belief. The thing that always held me back was that I didn't believe that I could do real estate. I knew that it was possible, but I didn't have any experience. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have a family with a lot of money. These are all things that I thought were requirement. I personally didn't have that much capital to get started with. So the thing that I went and did, and the thing I always recommend to other people who are looking to start anything new, is to find a community of people who are doing what you're doing or doing what you want to be doing so that you can follow in their footsteps. And so for me, and when I was getting started, what I did was I went and sought out this real estate investor event. It was literally the day I made that decision, I found an event that I could go and connect with some other people. And I went to that event with one specific purpose in mind. And it was to get connected with one specific mentor that was going to be speaking there. But it wasn't necessarily this mentor that was the most important piece of the puzzle of things coming together. It was the fact that I was going out to seek somebody who had already been down that path and already learned all those lessons. And so I just need to find a way that I could somehow get within that person's community. Now, I've paid tens of thousands of dollars for mentorship and coaching, and I highly recommend it. But at this point in time, I didn't have the money. And I still had limiting beliefs that I could even do this, or frankly, that anybody could even help me. And I had thought that spending money on coaching was a scam. Now, I'm totally wrong. I've totally changed my mind. I've totally changed my life by joining masterminds, and I pay for multiple coaches who help me in multiple different ways. But with this specific person, I ended up figuring out, well, what is a skill that I have that they don't have and that they're not doing very well? And how can I be of value or service to that person? So I sought out this person. I went to them with this pitch, and we ended up trading my skills as being able to develop websites and be able to build an incredible site for them for the chance to just simply follow them around. And so after about 3 or 4 months, I had seen a full flip from very start to the very finish. And that really jump-started my career because it gave me not only the belief that it's possible because I got to know this person, I got to see that they're a person just like me and that I'm capable of doing it, but I also got to start learning the lingo, and other people around me could see that growth happening. And so it attracted them to me. And so that's how I got started. And that's one of the best ways I think to get started is to go find people who are already doing what you're doing and figure out a way to be of value to them and to be able to get in their community.
Love it, man. There's so much to unpack there. And it's funny. I talked to so many people that are right at that beginning point. They want to get into it. They don't know what to do. you made a decision, but then you went all in to seek out the people that can help you and to get around the material, to get around the people, and to really immerse yourself entirely into the world of real estate. So you'll eventually become one of those people as well. That part is absolutely huge. Why do you think that many people, aside from limiting beliefs, of course, which is probably the biggest thing, why do you think people are sometimes hesitant, or they don't believe that they can do it? Like, where does that come from?
Well, what I've realized is that this is not something that's new, and it really comes down specifically to the fact that we all have fears. We all have these fears of whether we're not going to succeed, whether or not other people are going to accept us, whether people are going to judge us. All of these things all come back to us wanting to be part of a community, part of, a collective group of people who know, like, and trust us, and we know, like, and trust them. And we want to do things that are going to be able to help put us further and elevate us within that group. But we also don't want to do anything that's going to hurt us. And so for so many of us, we're afraid of making those decisions because of the fear that comes from some experience in our life or some belief or somebody telling us something along the way that has us sitting back on our heels. And so this is true for active real estate, operators who are looking to grow a career. This is true for passive investors who are sitting on the fence looking at a deal that they're ready to invest in. I work with people in both of those places. What I found is that usually it's people get right up to the edge. And that's the moment that the decision makes the most sense. It's the point where making that decision will move them to a whole nother level. It's not necessarily that decision is going to be the catalyst, but it's the fact that they're at a point ready to make that decision. And if they don't, they end up going backwards, right? And so it's one of the biggest ways that you can overcome this is that when you're in that emotional state, when you have that energy moving forward and you're ready to say, yes, I'm going to join this coaching program. Yes, I'm going to seek out a mentor. Yes, I'm going to invest in this specific real estate offering that I've reviewed and I don't like it, but something is holding me back. And it's not the gut feeling of, I don't believe in this person or I don't think this is a deal. It's that gut feeling of the fear of making the wrong choice, right? And so I see it all the time when people are sitting on the fence. And usually the people who succeed are the people who are willing to leap off the fence despite it maybe not working out all the time. Because when something goes wrong, perfect opportunity to learn, perfect opportunity to double down and, try again and, work through those problems, another time. But for so many of us, we're so afraid of the fact that we may fail that we don't take that step forward. And we never have the opportunity to learn from whatever was meant to be there.
Yeah. And it's, it's funny you should say all that, because I'll tell you, when I made the decision to finally exit corporate and really cut off everything, all my IT experience, 20 some years of IT experience, 6-figure incomes, all that stuff, the quote, security, in air quotes, the security of having a job, abandoned all that. That's what it took. And then I think another key aspect is burning the bridges, burning the boats, and people don't really understand what that means, but that means basically cutting off any other option going back to corporate.
You're speaking my language, brother.
To go do what you want to do. I mean, that's essentially what it did. But I think what was helpful to me when I made that decision was to actually write out the goals. I never did that before. Now it's a regular occurrence, writing out the goals and using a vision board. Right? Were you doing that kind of stuff when you first started?
Absolutely. Because if you don't know where you're going to go, how are you going to get there? If I was sitting here in Denver and I wanted to head out to LA, I'm not going to just decide to jump in my car and start driving. I'm probably going to figure out, even in that statement, I've already figured out where I'm going to go. But then I need to create the map to how I'm going to get there. What are these action steps that I'm going to take along the way? And how can I understand that I'm making progress towards that journey? Without knowing where you're going to want to go, it's impossible to be able to evaluate where you are along the process. I mean, there's something that's so interesting, right? Because when I was a kid, I grew up, the oldest of 4 kids from a rocky divorce. We lived in 7 different places by the time I was 13. But there was one subject that was always a fight in my household, and it was money. And so I saw it going down this path. I thought maybe if I go the traditional path, I won't get stuck in the blue collar living that I was accustomed to and all of the emotional baggage and fighting and things that I thought that went along with that. But I went corporate. I started working management consulting, and I had the job, and I was making more money than my parents. I was making more money than I ever had considered making my whole life. And I wasn't happy. And I wasn't happy because money wasn't the end all, but it's sure important because not having it is absolutely critical. So what ends up happening is people get to a point where they do all the right things. They follow the traditional path. They start making the money and they realize that there's something missing. And then they usually come towards people like me, whether they're looking to start a career in this space or they're looking to invest and they're looking to create a better life. They're trying to figure out, well, hey, how can I make some decisions that are going to bring me down this path? But it's that fear that I was talking about when I was a little kid about how money was connected to so much pain that ends up holding them back from making that decision to take the leap, to cut themselves off, to take the risk, even if it's a small risk. I would never recommend a client puts in a large percentage of their net worth into one single opportunity. And I would never recommend that a student spends more money than they have to start coaching, because how are you going to actually be able to grow? Now, I've definitely done it. And I think that a lot of people have gone down that path and it's worked out really well for them, but only worked well because they were 100% committed to finding a way no matter what. And that's the mindset people really need to be in when they're going to move forward in investing, because it doesn't matter whether you're looking to make a career out of it or whether you're absolutely passionate about what you're doing already and you're making a great income and you just want to start creating some of those benefits that real estate has to offer. Either one of those places, you're going to have to come from a place of making that decision, because someone's not going to make it for you. As an operator, I can't make the decision for you as an investor and sign the paperwork and wire the money as much as some operators would want to. I would never want to, because it's so important to me to work with people who are making those decisions and are active contributors to their own success. And that's really a lot of what we do on the Investor Mindset, is dive into the successful, what successful people think, so we can understand their mindset. And just to put a definition out there for people, mindset, in my eyes, is just the thoughts and beliefs that end up leading to the actions that we take and therefore the outcomes that we experience in our life. So if we can understand how successful people think, how someone who's already down that path that we want to go down is thinking, we can start changing our thoughts. We can start changing the things that we believe. We can start believing what they believe and therefore start having some of those same kind of results and start living a better life overall.
Yeah, it's funny. As you're explaining what your life growing up, we had the same thing. I had the same thing. I'm the oldest of three of us, and money was always a problem. It was always the difficulties that went around just living as a family. I think it was. I come to find out many years later, after I made the decision and really immersed myself back to building my mind, was the scarcity mindset. The scarcity mindset. And I think that for many folks out there, that that's where we're trained. We're trained this scarcity mindset. That's what it is, as opposed to the growth mindset, which is Carol Dweck talks about this in her book. It's an amazing way to live your life, as opposed to being scarce and always concerned about resources, which is what our ancestors did. You have the whisper of 10,000 generations in our heads that keeps telling us, oh, this is the last money you're ever going to have. You better eat that donut because you need more calories to live. Or all these different things that go through our lives today is all based off of this old way of thinking, the old way of being, as opposed to thinking in the way of growth. And I think, aside from making the decision,
just to add a little definition there for the growth mindset, and we hear this so often, and so many of us know it deeply, and so many of us are living it. And so many of us, like myself, who focus so much effort on growth and mindset, sometimes fall into, fall out of the growth mindset into a fixed mindset. And what it really means is the fixed mindset is somebody who is believing that things are as they are right now. They cannot change. Meaning, when I have failed, there is no success that comes from that failure. But when you have the growth mindset, you're able to recognize that where you are today does not necessarily represent where your potential is. And so having that growth mindset means when you deal with a problem, the faster that you can realize and come into that state of growth, the faster you can realize that there is a change that can happen, that you can grow through that you can overcome that, versus believing that you are smart or you are dumb, that you are this or you are that. And we are taught this from a very young age that we are either one or the other. But when we can start having great mentors in our life, when you can have, maybe it was parents for you, maybe it was a teacher, maybe it was a coach, somebody shared this idea that it's possible for you to grow, that if you work really hard, you're going to be better at that thing that you do. And so that's what the growth mindset really represents. It's that you are not stuck in one way of being or thinking or doing, that the world is always changing. And when we can come from that place, it's much easier and frankly, a much happier place to be because we recognize what's possible.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I did to help really make that shift, because for some people that might be listening to this for the very first time, they may not even be aware of what a fixed mindset is or what a growth mindset is. I'll tell you what worked for me was really immersing myself and challenging myself to read one book a week. Well, in my case, I was listening to a book a week. I'd never done that before. And I think that once I was able to start doing that, you start seeing the world in a very different way, a very different light. And because now you have all this new information that you're using, and every single day you're calling on that information to live your regular life. That made all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world is it's one of those things that even I tell my students in our coaching program, your assignment is to read a book a week for the next 8 weeks, and they've never done it before. They've never done it before.
There's a reason why so many executives, CEOs, and very successful people run things like the Ironman and the Spartan race, and they put themselves in these challenging situations. It's because when you put yourself in a challenging situation, you have an opportunity to realize that you are capable of so much more, that where you started today is not necessarily definitive of where you're going to be in 6 months when you have that race. And I can remember back when I was in college, I graduated high school. I found all of my identity and connection with other people through partying and just, getting after it. Went to a party school, definitely had a lot of fun. But I got to the end of my sophomore year and I realized like I was missing so much from life. I wasn't happy. I was questioning what the point of all of this was. I was frankly in a state that I was fairly hopeless, but I had recognized that I was in that place. And I don't know where that self-awareness came from, but I was able to see it myself. And I saw this program, this experience called Outward Bound. And the entire intention of this program was created back during World War II with the idea that if we put sailors through extremely tough measures, if we put them in a situation where they can push beyond what they believe they're capable of, they'll recognize that they have so much higher capabilities than they could have ever thought before, that the line of what is potential for them is way beyond anything they've ever believed. And the reason they did this was because all of these young sailors were dying when the U-boats were sinking their ships, but all the older sailors who had been through life experience were surviving. And so I ended up putting myself through a 30-day experience, going, out into the wilderness, no phones, no technology, and just essentially backpacking with a small group of people for 30 days. And what that experience did for me was it pushed myself to a whole nother level. I never realized that I had so much capability. And so it's the perfect example of where growth can happen. It's because when we can push ourselves beyond what we believe we're capable of, then we are able to do so much more. So I highly recommend find a way to do that in your everyday life. That might mean going out for a little run for yourself. That might mean signing up for something that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, because in that discomfort is actually where we find the most growth. And it's so important for real estate investors. It's so important for people who are looking to create financial freedom and the ability to go and do amazing things in their life, because without the ability to be in discomfort and push through that and recognize on the other side, there is great things that are going to be there. We're going to be living a life that isn't quite up to the potential that is possible for us.
Yeah, I'm 100%, man. I think that you just hit the nail on the head. Is that people are comfortable. They're stuck in their comfort zone. They have their 4-bedroom house. Their two bathrooms. They have a 2-car garage. I get to go to work. I come home. I get my paycheck. I'm happy. Everything's fine, right? Until one day it's not, And then that's just at that point they start complaining about their life. Well, I guess they're probably complaining aside from that as well about how much they don't like their job or their boss or whatever the case may be, and they're not living life on their own terms. That's ultimately what it is. But at the end of the day, if you're able to push yourself beyond the comfort zone, which is what I did when I first started. And I mean, the way I did it is I sold everything. I mean, I went back down to zero. And now we're at 1,000 units, about the Rockefeller building, where we just signed another LOI, another development project. I mean, it didn't happen overnight, but all these things would never happen if I wouldn't just take it all to zero, got very, very uncomfortable, and started building up again. I'm not recommending people do that, but it's really just getting out of the comfort zone. That's ultimately what you have to do, and always pushing yourself beyond it. That's ultimately what it is.
Absolutely. And that's really where you end up being able to create the life that you want. I spent so much of my career in real estate, building this house flipping business. And I got to this point where I recognized that what I had built was not the business that I wanted to run for the next 20 or 30 years. I was making incredible income, more money than I ever had made before. It's a theme in these careers that I keep taking on. But I got to this point where I recognized that I was doing this for a different reason than I originally set out to in the first place, that I had lost track of that idea of creating financial freedom and really being able to do whatever I want when I want. I was stuck within the depths of that business. Now, and as a multifamily operator, somebody going out and purchasing, large buildings, there's definitely responsibilities, and you're going to be in a different business there. So it's not necessarily easier. But what it was for me was when I recognized really that I had wanted to work with a very specific type of clientele, that the kind of people that I was surrounding myself with in the house flipping business, a lot of amazing investors, but our clients that we worked with all the time, there was a one-time sale, and it was people who were selling their house for 60 cents on the dollar. And so what I found was that people were not in a growth mindset. They were not thinking about what's possible. They were not open to it, creating a better life for themselves and being able to create life on their terms. They were in survival mode. And no matter what I would want to do to try to help somebody recognize what's possible for them, they weren't interested or open to it. And so that's when I had that moment of realizing, okay, it's so critical for me to focus on who my ideal client is. Who's that person who is already successful, who wants to be successful, who is willing to do whatever it takes to create life on their terms, who is looking to create that financial freedom, that flexibility, all the things that really makes up, the values of my life. And how can we create a business around that of serving those clients, not for today, but for the next 20 years? And that's really what attracted me to this industry so much. So if that's somebody, if that speaks to you, I highly encourage you to reach out directly to me. Join us on the Investor Mindset podcast, and you can send me a message on any social media channel, but you can head over to stevenpesavento.com to learn a little bit more about what we're up to, listen to other episodes, and see what we've got inside.
Excellent. So I know we talk a lot about the growth mindset. We talk a lot about limiting beliefs. Now, if someone's listening to this podcast right now, and they might be questioning their own life at this very moment, what sort of bulletproof advice would you offer them?
The advice that I would offer is you at a point where you're ready to decide what's next, to sit down and get clear about what you want most, to outline in detail what that vision looks like, to go spend an hour, a day, a week, whatever it's going to take for you to spend that time getting clear, and then decide that that's the direction you're going to go. It doesn't need to be the right direction. It just needs to be the direction that's right for you. And so that's the biggest advice that I'd have. And then in order to really make that stick is to go get yourself in an environment with other people, a community of like-minded folks who you have the opportunity to learn from, the opportunity to model their business, to do what I've done and find success, and get in communities where other people can share those lessons with you. And, I spent a significant amount of time doing that from both sides, because I really believe that that's one of the best ways to grow, is if you can share your lessons with others and you can look to others to learn lessons, that's a life that's worth living. So I highly encourage you to go find some people to learn from and start growing today.
Right. And don't be afraid to pay for mentorship as well. Don't ever be afraid of that.
Yeah,
because you can get a lot of value from that. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, if you want to reach out to Steven, you can reach him via his website at theinvestormindset.com. Go ahead and check out his stuff. He's got good material. Hope you got some insight on how you can create wealth and freedom by maintaining an investing mindset. Okay, maintain that growth mindset. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Hey, Agostino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 202-410-4202 to receive weekly book recommendations from me.